A few clipped statements taken out of context. The kind of digital noise people scroll past without a second thought. But within hours, something shifted. Screenshots started circulating, old clips resurfaced, and suddenly, what looked like a routine political media clash turned into something much bigger, something far more personal, far more volatile. Andrew Kolvet stepped in too. Disagreement, not neutral clarification, but something sharper. Something loaded. And when he spoke, it didn't feel like he was just responding anymore. It felt like he was drawing a line between truth and what he was calling distortion. But was that really what was happening? Or was something deeper, unfolding behind the scenes that no one was fully seeing yet? Because on the other side of this storm was Candace Owens, a media figure who has never exactly avoided controversy. Someone who has built an audience on challenging narratives, questioning institutions, and pushing back against mainstream interpretations. And now, she was at the center of something she didn't fully seem to be backing away from, but also not fully escalating, which made everything even more confusing. Because silence, in a moment like this, says just as much as words, maybe more. And that's where things started to get strange. People began asking a question that nobody had a clean answer to. Was this a simple misunderstanding blown out of proportion? Or was there a coordinated narrative battle happening in real time, hidden behind carefully chosen words and selective outrage? And then came the moment that changed the tone completely, Andrew. Kolvet didn't just respond again. He escalated. Publicly, bought forcefully, in a way that made it clear he wasn't interested in letting the conversation fade away quietly. And that's when people started paying attention, not just fans, not just critics, but observers. Who could sense when an online argument starts to feel different, more structured, more intentional, almost like every statement was part of something larger that hadn't been fully revealed yet? But what exactly was being defended? And what exactly was being accused? Who, you asked? And that's where the confusion deepened into something closer to tension. Because every clip, every quote, every reposted segment told a slightly different story. Some said Andrew Kolvet was exposing what he believed were misleading narratives being spread publicly. Others said the response was exaggerated, emotionally charged, even performative. And in the middle of it all, Candace Owens continued to speak in her own framing of events. Firestorm that was building around her, but the internet doesn't wait for clarity. It fills silence with speculation. And speculation is where things start to spiral. That's when a new layer entered the story. People began digging. Old interviews, previous statements, past disagreements that suddenly because instead of one clear narrative forming to something more unsettling. What are we not being shown? Every new statement feels suspicious. Every clarification feels strategic. Every denial feels calculated. And Andrew, anymore, he was addressing what he believed was a broader distortion. At least that's how his supporters interpreted it. But critics saw something else entirely. They saw escalation. They saw framing. They saw a narrative being pushed with increasing intensity. And Candace Owens, she became the center of a storm where both sides believed they were reacting to something bigger than just a disagreement, but neither side could fully prove what that bigger thing actually was. And that's where the psychological tension of the situation began to take over. Because when no single truth dominates, dangerous. Very quickly. Then came the moment that pushed everything into a new phase. A single exchange that spread faster than anything. People who weren't even following the situation closely started forming strong opinions about it. But here's what made it even more unsettling. The more viral it became, the less clear it actually got. Not more clarity, less. And that raised a question almost nobody wanted to answer out loud. Was this still about truth? Or had it already become about winning perception? The original details started fading behind reactions, and reactions became the story. Andrew Kolvet's supporters pointed to what they called consistency. Conviction, refusal to back down. His critics pointed to, rather than direct engagement, which only deepened the mystery because silence can be powerful, but it can also be misread in 1,000 different ways. And in this environment, happened. Smaller voices began entering the conversation. People who claimed they had context. People who claimed they understood the background. People who insisted the public was only seeing fragments. But none of them agreed with each other. Every insider perspective contradicted another. And suddenly the situation didn't feel like a debate anymore. It felt like a fractured puzzle where every piece claimed to be the center began to spread. Not paranoia in the literal sense, but the feeling that something important was being interpreted differently depending on who controlled the narrative lens. And once that idea takes hold, it doesn't go away easily, because now every statement becomes evidence. Every silence becomes suspicion. Every response becomes strategy. And Andrew Kolvet's next remarks only intensified that feeling. They were sharper now, more deliberate, almost like he was no longer just reacting. And what happens when public confrontation stops being about facts and starts becoming about momentum? That question hung over the entire situation because momentum is unpredictable. It grows, it spreads, it reshapes meaning as it moves. And that's exactly what this conflict was starting to feel like. Not a contained disagreement, but a rolling narrative that no one could fully steer anymore. Then came the twist nobody expected. The audience itself became divided not just on who was right, but on what they were even watching. Some believed this was a principled stand being taken in real time. Others believed it was a media-driven escalation fueled by attention cycles. And both sides were convinced the other side was missing something. Neither side could fully prove their interpretation. And that uncertainty is where stories like this start to take on a life of their own. Because once a situation becomes unresolvable through evidence alone, it shifts into perception, and perception is endless. It doesn't stop, it evolves. It mutates with every new clip, every repost, every commentary breakdown, and somewhere inside that evolution, the original truth, whatever it may have been, becomes harder and harder to isolate. So where does that leave us? With more questions than answers, with a conflict that feels larger than its tades, surface details, with personalities locked in a public narrative struggle that keeps expanding every time it is discussed, and with audiences left trying to piece together something that may no longer exist in a single, complete form. Because the deeper you go into it, the more one question refuses to go away. Was this ever really about what it seemed to be about? Or was that only the surface layer of something far more complex happening beneath? And just when you think the story has reached its peak, it doesn't. Settle. It doesn't resolve, it lingers. Because new responses are still coming. New interpretations are still forming. And the narrative is still moving. Which means the final truth, if there is one, might not be here yet. So what do you think is really happening behind this entire exchange? Was this a genuine clash of principles being defended publicly? Or something shaped more by perception, timing, and media amplification than anyone wants to admit? Drop your thoughts in the comments, because every perspective adds another piece to a story that still doesn't feel complete. And if more details emerge, this situation could shift again in ways nobody is prepared for. Because the truth in stories like this is a way of changing shape when more eyes start watching. And maybe we've only seen the beginning.